I think the time has come when the American people realize that we're in this together and that we sink or swim together. And I say to you, maybe, just maybe, that that's the way it should be. A test of our courage, of our compassion.
Believe it or not, there was a time when Americans trusted their politicians. But in the mid-20th century, the trust between the American people and their government quickly started to dissipate. First came the paranoia of the Cold War, which seeped down from the top. Accusations of communist conspiracy ran rampant, and McCarthyism was the order of the day.
Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
Trust in governmental institutions completely collapsed during the Vietnam War, with Lyndon Johnson's famous credibility gap.
It is true that a house divided against itself by the spirit of faction, of party, of region, of religion, of race, is a house that cannot stand.
When Johnson decided not to run again in 1968, another McCarthy, Senator Eugene McCarthy, entered the race to take on Vice President Hubert Humphrey on the Vietnam War.
Well, there are two or three things wrong with it, I think. First place, the Pied Piper didn't lead the children over the riverbank. He led the rats over it.
Eugene McCarthy was soon joined by Bobby Kennedy, who unfortunately would not make it through the 1968 primaries.
Senator Kennedy has been shot. Is that possible? Is that possible?
Eugene McCarthy's speechwriter was a journalist named Jeremy Larner. Even after Hubert Humphrey won the Democratic nomination in the most chaotic convention in American history, Jeremy Larner continued to work for the peace movement to end the Vietnam War. Larner even wrote a speech for Paul Newman to give at the moratorium, the largest protest in American history. The credibility gap continued to widen under Richard Nixon. As the Vietnam War, which Nixon had pretended to have a secret plan to end, waged on, the feeling only grew deeper that politics was a dirty business and politicians were crooks. Everyone was out for themselves. In this whirlwind of distrust and quickly eroding credibility, Robert Redford and the director Michael Ritchie approached Jeremy Larner in 1971 to write a screenplay that they had an idea for. Michael Ritchie, who would go on to direct The Bad News Bears, had worked for a California senator named John Tunney, who took on George Murphy, the first movie actor to hold political office. John Tunney was the basis for Robert Redford's Bill McKay, a liberal activist who was approached to run for the Senate on the promise that he can say whatever he wants.
You're saying I can say what I want, do what I want, go where I please.
It's right. Here's your guarantee.
I lose.
Bill McKay's good looks, he is Robert Redford after all, and incredibly earnest outbursts help him win the Democratic primary to face off against the Nixonian law and order type Republican Crocker Jarman.
I remember my mom and dad went through the 1930s without welfare, without poverty programs. Why, none of us kids even had a social worker. How did we do it? Well, ladies, excuse me, but we worked our butts off.
Peter Boyle plays Marvin Lucas, a cynical and skilled campaign manager who comes up with the idea of running McKay, a virtual political outsider. Although originally considered an unwinnable race, Bill McKay begins to actually close the gap between himself and Crocker Jarman. This development leads the cynical Marvin Lucas to start pushing McKay towards the center.
The reason you're vulnerable on this stuff is you haven't established yourself on crime, right?
You're gonna have to get out of here.
In a second, officer.
This is Bill McKay. Care if it's Henry Fonda.
Well, give me the damn program for it. This is your crime program. You have to get this in your lunch speech today, and you have to get it in the debate tomorrow night. Whatever questions they ask, just give them our answers.
Crime isn't an issue. It's a symptom.
The once earnest pronouncements turn into bland platitudes.
Well, we can't let a school bus carry all the burdens of our society. The main problem is still, how do we get a first-rate education for each and every child? We can't afford to have inferior schools anywhere, and we should always try to preserve the concept of the neighborhood school in achieving this.
Coming full circle, Ritchie and Robert Redford got Hubert Humphrey to make a cameo. The candidate is a prescient warning about how American politics turns idealistic young liberals into jaded centrists. It could not have come at a better time, as the post-Nixonian wave of young Watergate babies would ride into power just 2 years later.
You know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. We are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Jan World, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal and the frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. They just got back from touring on the East Coast. Kristina Oakes, she has recently rebranded to Cosmopolitics, twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics, or on Patreon, or find her on all the social media websites. I, of course, am your long-suffering host, Forrest Miller. Without further ado, let's get started.
So much suffering. Yeah, so very much.
Especially today, because I'm actually like pretty sick, and so
it's different kind of suffering today. Yeah,
it's I'm sick of the suffering, is what I am.
Yeah. Normally you suffer for your art. Now you're suffering for whatever.
Just suffering in general.
Now I'm suffering from this being the allergy season and having my lungs damaged from COVID back in the summer.
We're about to suffer from the electoral decisions of the American populace. So a whole lot of suffering going on.
I'm curious to see how the election live coverage goes if we do that.
Well, unfortunately, I'm dog sitting again, so I'm making it.
Yeah, that's thanks for the vote of confidence. Yeah, this is
a bad omen.
Yeah, this was a great movie to start off election month to me, because for me, I think it's one of the great campaign movies. And spoiler alert for a movie that is 50 years old at this point. Has one of the best endings, one of the best bummer endings of all time, right? Which is just like,
the Charlie Day when he has the all the tallies on his shirt and he's like, so what do now?
But like Hogs challenge, let's go.
But to put it back on topic, the thing is that like this is an idealist, right? Like McKay's an idealist, like, and he's like, he's ideals with a message. Like they often said that, if Dennis Kucinich, instead of looking like a keyboard elf, looked like like a handsome actor or something, then maybe he would
look like somebody who belongs with his wife.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely punching above his weight class.
Well, he's like Roger Rabbit and she's Jessica Rabbit.
It's actually, that's a great analogy. But it's also off topic that if he had because if he had had the same kind of looks at, like, say, a young Robert Redford had, then the message would resonate more, because people now more than ever, but it's always been the same, like the package in an attractive person. But he's an idealist, he's a believer. And then through the course of the movie, that gradually gets, as he gets closer and closer to winning, going from being like a joke of a candidate, or just like basically being literally set up to lose, like, hey, this will help boost your profile to like start your own practice and do whatever the hell it is you want to do, to being like, oh no, this guy's serious. Oh no, he's a contender. Oh no, he could win. And then gradually the consultant guy gets makes him go safer and safer, and he goes along with it. He has a choice, but he goes along with it. And
it's just a jump to the right and then a step to the right.
Because it's ratchet theory, right? It's what we've been dealing with in politics for at least the last 30 years. But it's so great that during the course of the movie, you literally get to see it. You don't get told about it. You see it, and you see like these small decisions that end up being like, okay, well, I guess that doesn't matter as much to me, and okay, I will take care of that later. And then like, so when he gets to the end, what do you do now? It's like he doesn't even know anymore, because the act of like he's become a politician. The act of winning an election that's all there is this winning. It's the acquisition of power for its own sake. And I think that's an incredible place to start for a film,
which is also the story of, it is the story of Joe Biden, right? Like, that's why I included that at the end of the thing. He started out as kind of this, he started out as this like
or Jeb Bush, or like,
well, it's harder for a Republican to be that. It's harder for a Republican to be that because they're not really that idealistic to start with. I mean, I guess some of the maybe anti-corruption stuff, but like it's easier for a Democrat.
I would more go with Kristina than what you said. They're less than they're good looking.
There's a study out there that says conservative men are more attracted than liberal men. I'm like, you sure about that?
Who started that study? Ted Cruz?
Yeah.
Jackson Hinkle, 35 years ago.
Jackson Hinkle.
All right.
I just can't hear that name without cracking up. Hinkle's a funny name.
So we're looking at ostensibly, it is a funny name, ostensibly from the progressive left and the forces of corporatism, aka moderation. But I mean, it is the idea of like you start off with ideals and you're running for this office for a reason, and then gradually that gets winnowed away until just the winning becomes the only thing, and then you have all these Congress critters, as Hightower called them, Jim Hightower, that are in office. That like, why are they there? I don't know. Like whatever. Like what's what lobbyists are we meeting with today?
You get Dianne Feinstein at one point. You get her like level of like she's just like 96. Not only does she not know what she's doing in Congress anymore, she doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know that it's they're like, come on, you got to go vote on this in the Senate.
But to be clear, she was terrible even when she did. But but like, I mean,
we established in the Milk episode, she was Dan White's mentor.
God damn it. So, but I think that this is amazing because like you get to see that this is someone that is literally selected. Like, oh, like the kids like let's put up a challenge even though we know it's gonna lose. Which nowadays like there's some offices that they just won't feel the candidate, which is amazing. Or worse, like in Utah, it's Evan McMullen that is the endorsed Democratic candidate
in a southern red state like South Carolina, where they don't even do jack shit in the Democratic Party.
They didn't in Wisconsin. They had like a gentleman's agreement to like not contest certain seats, which is like, and then it's like, that they gerrymandered, right? So they're always going to win, is what that means. And like, oh yeah, I guess we'll contest some of these then, which is just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Also,
too.
Well, I mean, Democrats do that in New York too. Like we had Kevin Cahill.
Oh sure.
He just got
from California, which is
they fielded the very first DSA candidate that ever ran from this area, Sarah Hanna. But like he was in office longer than I've been alive. Kevin Cahill, who she challenged, he was elected in like 1991, which is like 3 years before I even existed. He's been sitting in that assembly member seat, just doing whatever assembly members do, voting on stuff. He also he got enraged, I guess, when Roe versus Wade got overturned and people celebrated and cheered that they codified it in the New York State Assembly like the same day. And he was like, "You can't cheer that. That's abortion." And I was like, that race that you just went through, that's abortion. You're out of your seat now, buddy.
Well, so too, like because Andrew Cuomo putting so many Republicans in place in New York, now people say that Zeldin, whatever his name is, could actually become governor.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that a Republican could win New York governor. I don't think
in the past.
I know, but I don't think Lee Zeldin is that.
It happened in your lifetime, yeah.
I think Mormon Joe Exotic is a little too anti-charismatic to win any elections. But I think that
George Pataki had no charisma and managed to win an election.
Yeah, but he was a little bit different. That was a whole different thing. My dad voted for him like 3 times as a liberal because he was the more environmentally friendly.
This is going to be a really hard month to stay on topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, at least we're discussing stuff. I mean, in a way,
we're discussing elections. These are literally elections.
It's important to discuss about these things because the candidate reminds me of Kennedy versus Nixon.
Yes,
the first televised debate, and even though Kennedy wasn't really like at his best or whatever, because we watched the debate in my government class, Richard Nixon was on top of things, but he didn't look so good.
Well, Richard Nixon was on his deathbed, so he banged.
He was like Bolsonaro. He had like COVID.
He banged his knee on a car door, and he went into sepsis. So he was literally his body was going through septic shock, and then he got a cold while touring the country. He didn't go to the hospital, so he was literally about to die when he was on that.
Yeah, he was
like Bolsonaro. But the thing is, looked at Kenny and were like, oh.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you talk to people that watch it on TV, they say Kennedy won, but people that listen on the radio, they said the Nixon won.
Exactly.
The other thing is that there's a lot of stuff Nixon couldn't talk about because he was literally vice president, so he knew what was happening in Cuba and stuff. And Kennedy got briefed by Allen Dulles, personally, so he was allowed to use that briefing information in a way that Nixon wasn't. And all Nixon could really say is we're working on it, and no one wants to hear that.
Yeah, but that's completely irrelevant. The point is that that's where the beginning of image as a major factor in modern politics kind of became true. And this is 4 years after that, right?
Yeah.
That granted it's about a different race ostensibly, but it's really about that change in how people choose their leaders.
This movie
in the Democratic Party too. Everyone's like, "Oh, look at Beto O'Rourke." He kind of reminds me of Robert Redford's character at first because he ran on progressive policies. But guess what happened once he got the nominations?
Or Stacey Abrams, right? Stacey Abrams presumably kind of ran on a more progressive ticket at first, and now her whole thing is just voting rights, and that's it.
As someone who lives within the CSRA, which is we get all of our news out of Augusta, Georgia, in South Carolina, in Aiken. There is a lot of ads out there now about Stacey Abrams, how she's going to be a Hollywood president for whatever reason.
Because she was in an episode of Star Trek, right?
There is anti-white bigotry happening.
Which I think is one of the coolest things she's ever done, frankly.
Joe Biden put white people last. And I'm like, I need to record this ad the next time I see it because it's ridiculous.
Joe Biden is funny because he's literally been the most pro-white Democrat that we've ever really had. He's just let's incarcerate more black people, and they're like, this guy hates the whites.
Yeah,
but that's the thing with framed language, though. It doesn't matter if it's remotely true as long as it activates the circuit. It doesn't matter. I mean, everything is Lee Atwater now. Everything. Lee Atwater was considered a wild outlier. Everything is Lee Atwater now.
Yeah, but that's also why Republicans burn out. I think
shitting in litter boxes, for fuck's sakes. Come on.
Yeah, I think Republicans kind of burn out because their lexicon has gotten so insular at this point with the way that they foment stuff within their own base sometimes.
Yeah,
that it doesn't permeate outside of their most reactionary evangelical base.
But it doesn't need to, as long as it activates the circuit and they get the 2 minutes hate out of it. That's all they need. They need people to be pissed off enough at the right time to pull the lever or whatever. That's it. That's all they need.
I think the boogeyman's gonna be next election cycle.
Maybe the caravan can make a comeback. Is that too soon?
Oh, my whole thing during Pride Month, I wanted it to be the gay caravan because they were talking about how the caravan's coming back. So this caravan was going to be led by
the caravan, but gay.
It's the village
caravan
led by the village people.
Pride caravan,
so it's literally the Pride caravan. They're coming through. They're having gay pride parade all the way from Mexico into the United States. It's going to be this whole crazy.
It's a gay pride invasion, actually, is what it is.
There we go.
YMCA.
but getting back to the movie, I think this is one of the first depictions of if you even look at the text of what's happening, it's there's a lot of talk of being substantive on the issues and oh no, that wouldn't be appropriate to bring that up and this and that, right? But then it kind of becomes oh no, this dude's young and attractive and that's enough. so we could just like push
And
to any
Crocker
policy we
Jarman
want.
is kind of old and creepy.
Yeah, and he's
has-
old and kind of weird, and like
He has the Orwell eyes behind him. He literally has the Big Brother is watching you eyes behind him. Anytime he goes anywhere, it's on his bus. It's behind him on stage when he's giving that speech. Like he is full blown 1984. He even says like Big Brother or whatever. He's like, get Big Brother off your back, bro. You are Big Brother.
Yeah.
You are literally.
Yeah,
and he's-
politicians. I mean, we have the NSA now, which you guys passed. Like, hello. But question.
I think
When
it was
did
Crocker
you
Jarman
guys-
and just him. I think he was the
When
one.
did
that-
you guys first see this film? Was it before or after you were like more political savvy? Because I watched this because my government teacher was like, there's one film you need to watch. As someone who's for Bernie, as someone who's very left leaning, is The Candidate.
2
Because
days ago, and I was here in
Monday,
the
yes.
y'all are killing me on this. I watched it about 20 years ago, and I watched it. I guess it was right about when the Dean campaign was starting up, and it was I got it from the video store. And I heard it was Robert Redford was good in it, and that he's like a JFK kind of politician that the system grinds down. I'm like, this sounds like a product for me. And I checked that. I loved it. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, I loved it. I'm the one.
I'm glad that my government teacher was like, you need to watch this because this is something that actually happens within the Democratic Party. So
yeah,
I was like,
Yeah.
Good
So when did this become a scathing review to become like a how-to guide?
well, that's just it,
Dan
right?
Quayle.
It was meant to be satire and kind of like a farce to a certain degree. And now it's just like, no, this is just how it is now.
But
we've
you know.
never,
No,
they
Dan,
never
Dan
learned.
Quayle literally watched it and said on the campaign trail, "Hey, this was a great how-to guide for me." And the guy who wrote it actually had to write like an article in the New York Times and say, "Hey, this is a satire, and it's supposed to be talking about like the farce of idealistic candidates gone wrong. This was not a how-to guide." Dan Quayle is obviously a moron too, but
Yeah,
like you know,
like this was basically like Pete Buttigieg, you know, or
Thanks for
something like
sneaking that
like,
in there, just in case anybody
Super
forgot.
good,
Like I was a
Beto
fucking idiot.
O'Rourke, like those young male Democrat candidates that are good looking, I guess, you know, like it's weird
Generically good looking. Robert
Yeah.
Redford is way more interesting.
yeah, like
good
John
looking
Edwards might be the best looking politician of our lifetime.
Yeah, too bad he's a skeeve.
Yeah, true, but you know, I'm just talking aesthetics here.
Yeah, but from is he a handsome dude? Yeah, he's a handsome dude.
But
sure.
it's interesting
Yeah,
how
but he's not Robert Redford handsome.
no.
well, Robert Redford has
Yeah.
like the Kennedy jaw too. You know what I mean? Like
He
not-
looks like
I
a
mean, not
candidate.
the-
That's a good point.
yeah.
He looks like a candidate, like from the Kennedy family, that would be like around at that time, right?
Yeah.
Like, the generic. What we started to think of after the Kennedys were around for a while as what a political candidate looks like, which is crazy if you think a single family like basically changed everyone's view of that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which is also why in like Transmetropolitan, that's why the Spiler kind of looked like a Kennedy.
Yeah, he totally looks like a kid. This okay. All right, thanks. For
Well, I
it in, I guess. I don't know.
what the hell was I gonna say? I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, so
I don't know, I was
Robert
confused.
Redford really wanted to make this film.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
he
have-
was fired up about it. Yeah, please let's talk about that.
I,
Because he's very,
I have,
very
I have
political,
some
very
Robert
progressive.
Redford clips that I pulled. So this is him talking about it a little bit. This is like it's a 5-minute clip, but it is him talking about it with a woman who I've seen her before. I don't know where I've seen her, but she's very, very excited to talk to Robert Redford about this movie specifically.
Who
Out
would
of
be?
an hour and a half
Okay.
long interview
Yeah.
about his entire career, she talks to him about this movie for like 15 minutes of it.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to.
But they're going through all of his movies, and she's like,
Oh,
"This
I
is the
thought it
one
was
I
our woman.
specifically."
Where's Bobby?
I know, Bobby. It's been too long since.
Gordon Willis did the photography, which was really terrific because he knew how to work with dark, mostly dark and light. And he had a concept about when you were in the newsroom, it would be completely fluorescent lighting. There'd be no shadows. The moment you would leave, that's where the light was. That's where the effort to tell the truth was. Once you went out, you were in the darkness. So Washington was shown in the dark. So that scene is a combination of Gordon Willis and Alan Pakula really designing a scene that most people kind of knew about, but we wanted to make it frightening. And the way they constructed the scene with Deep Throat was to make it frightening. And the whole idea of take this movie and start making it really, really frightening. That's how close we came to losing something important.
I don't
So
remember Deep Throat being
you,
frightening.
both of these movies, Wildwood was involved as a production company. Is that correct?
Yes.
So while you didn't direct them, you didn't actually write them
I did work on The Candidate.
as a writer.
Yeah, because the reason for making The Candidate was what I could see in 1968, 9, 70, that suddenly we were electing people not by substance, but for cosmetics. And so I wanted to make a movie that showed you could succeed if you were just cosmetically attractive, as opposed to having substance. And that's why I felt that I felt that the first 3 films that I made that I could produce should end with a question. Downhill Racer ends with a question.
Same question, right?
Well, it's not verbalized, but it's the guy does everything to win. He realizes, what does he really want? What does he really want? And in The Candidate, I wanted the last line to be, what do we do now? From a character that got taken over by the system, and suddenly he was there, but he forgot how he got there and forgot why he was there. And so Michael Ritchie was the director of that film, and Downhill Racer, and Pakula for All the President's Men. So I just felt very privileged to be able to work with those guys because we really worked hard to develop the project.
The thing about The Candidate also The Candidate is fascinating because that's still the model, right? I mean, that model back there in 1970.
It was meant to be a satire.
Yes, but and it kind of is today. It also is, there's a layer in it that you can see in your performance. This is what happens to actors. You know, as it happens to politicians, but it also happens to actors when they begin to feel, you know, this huge crowd out there looking at them, and they begin to play the crowd and understanding how to play the crowd. That's why I love that scene where you have all those people looking at him and they absolutely.
She's like, can you teach me how to play the crowd?
And he's saying nothing whatsoever.
Right. But it's getting to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's buying into it. Yeah. I remember years ago how good it felt and how different it was, because I had been in theater and early television, and suddenly something shifted after Butch Cassidy, and how I began to get noticed. And so I remember thinking, uh-oh, there's danger here, and I better watch out. I don't want to buy into this. I don't want to let this affect me. So I made 3 notes to myself. It all had to do with the word object. And I said, the first thing is you begin to be treated like an object, and it feels different and it feels good. And then if you're not careful, you'll begin to behave like an object. And if you're not careful with that, you become an object. So I put that up for myself to be careful. So I was doing pretty well. And then I'll just tell you this quick story, but where I learned about the value of humility. After Butch Cassidy, I was starting to get recognized, and it really felt good. And pretty soon along the road, I began to think, hey, maybe I am kind of a big deal, maybe I am somebody, And it started to get to my head. I was getting ready to cross the street in Wilshire Boulevard, and I was about to step off the curb, and this car came as the light was changing, and it was full of a lot of teenagers in the car. And they saw me, and they went like this, and I thought, oh, these are fans, and they rolled down the window as they were coming by, and they said, Robert Redford. I said, hey, they said, you're such an asshole. And I said, okay, I guess that's it, from that point on.
Nowadays, it'd be even worse. You just get hit in the head with a hammer.
By the way, he insults the cosmetics of politics. He didn't have to go at Kristina like that. He's like, I made this movie because of cosmopolitics.
Yeah, now I'm going to change my name from Robert POTUS.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Kristina, because that you put that as your name, because in the Watchmen universe, where Richard Nixon goes on to 3rd and 4th term, eventually Robert Redford runs against him with Jerry Brown as his running mate, loses, then Nixon dies, and Robert Redford is elected president with Bob Kerrey as vice president, and then it goes on from there.
It was Jerry Brown that made him lose.
Yeah, that was the comic.
This would have been like still between modern Jerry Brown and like Governor Moonbeam and Jerry Brown, so it actually does make sense. But yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, no. What's interesting about the comic though is they never actually said it was Robert Redford, because there was that newspaper.
Right, you just see
RR.
him. Yeah.
You just see RR, and it could be Ronald Reagan, and it could be Robert Redford. They never actually said. It doesn't matter. It was just, and then I remember
inside you there are two RRs. Like, one of them is Robert Redford. One of them is Ronald Reagan.
That's an RR.
And I remember going to comic book shops and having people argue whether if it was Ronald Reagan or Robert Redford, and that's the beauty of that kind of vagary of is it Robert Redford? I mean, yes,
Ronald Reagan would have never ran against Richard Nixon, though. That's the thing.
Well, you think in this case, Richard Nixon would have still been president because, like, they lift it's a whole thing. They they lift term limits. He ends up being really popular because of something he did when the superheroes came out. Whatever.
No, I mean, like Reagan's personal deferential attitude towards Richard Nixon as a human being. I don't think he would have been able to do it. So I'm Team Robert Redford on this one.
Well, it is Robert Redford. I mean, ultimately, it was said as Robert Redford, and then the TV series they picked up the continuity and not only confirmed it, went further with it. I think at some point Jesse Ventura becomes his vice president too, or whatever.
But I just remembering in the in the 90s, people arguing over this. So it's just an interesting point in fact of
only reason I bring it up is because Kristina's handle, which is Robert Redford for POTUS, and honestly, you could have done worse, especially in his younger, more activist days. But he also formed Sundance, and Sundance is great.
But like Vice President fucking Jesse Ventura means Michael Brooks would have never been able to go tell him about Lula.
All right. But it is amazing that like at where Robert Redford is at is pretty much where the Bill McKay character is at to a certain degree, except for like in a different sort of way. And I love like certain little bits of this movie, like Natalie Wood as herself showing up to meet the candidate, which is always nice to see Natalie Wood, by the way.
I love her. She was murdered by Robert Wagner for sure.
Why was Christopher Walken there? That's the detail that never made sense. And why have they not tried to get that information out of Christopher Walken?
Allegedly, they had an affair.
Yeah, no, I've heard there's a whole bunch of rumors. There's rumors that like they had an affair and then he found out about it and killed her. And then there's other rumors that like she slipped off and he didn't like they just watched her drown and didn't like. There's a whole bunch of different theories about how it happened.
Natalie Wood. Well, didn't her and Robert Redford star in a film together? I think.
I don't know.
The other cameo they get is they get Hubert Humphrey, which is a weird fucking cameo.
It's a very weird. It's a weird, but it makes sense, right?
Especially because he doesn't say anything. He just walks through, and you're like, "Is that?
Yeah, is that? I
is
think
that Hubert Humphrey."
That is like my eyes deceive me.
There's no. I don't even know if like late Hubert Humphrey was that popular with the Democratic Party. He like walks through like a fucking celebrity. Like, hey,
it's like Obama walking in.
I think that so I'm going to bring us back on track here. I think this is a great script, and I think it's a script that actually
we were on track. I was literally talking about the scene from the movie where Hubert Humphrey walks through this thing.
If you say so. The script for this is really genius in a lot of ways, and I think because so much of it holds true to today. But again, remembering that this was like an absurdist farce.
And no one has learned a goddamn thing from this movie, too.
No. Because then they made West Wing as like a drama based on this.
Yeah.
I mean, right down to hiring what's his face who looked like the bald guy in this movie.
I know what you're talking about, but I'm not going to show you.
Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein. There's somebody in the West Wing they hired who just happens to be cosplaying him. Peter Boyle, yes. Which is kind of hilarious.
It's just interesting what liberals do. The West Wing, and like I'm like, you guys don't understand that you don't have to do this in real life. Like you can actually run on leftist policies and be like a pro-worker candidate and like not move to the middle the moment you win the nomination, right? Like, why do you think people voted for you?
Well, a big part of that was the Watergate babies that came 4 years after this movie, who all ran like Bill McKay, pretty much, right? Like they were all idealistic young liberals that all ran at the same time, and the whole thing was they were going to get rid of like the old corrupted political institution. They overturned seniority rules in the Senate and in Congress. Like there was a whole so they overturned basically all of the procedural rules, which is what liberals love anyway. So I guess they did succeed in that. But then there were unforeseen consequences. Many of them, including the guy that Bill McKay's based off of, got swept away. He wasn't the Watergate baby, but he was like young at the same time. He got swept away in the conservative backlash to a lot of this stuff, like a few years later. Like, so there's this is very much of the time that they're talking about. Although like the large wave of Bill McKay's that swept into Congress didn't come for another 4 years.
Yeah, and then Reagan happened, and
that's a completely different discussion for a different show. But
well,
about this movie is that like it's amazing how many of the things really.
Funny, you didn't get the message that this is movie night Rake Extravaganza.
You had to make it Rake political.
I can't believe they made Reagan political.
There's no reason to do an after party because we're literally just doing it in the middle of the show right now.
Hey, it's fun talking about politics in a movie that is about politics.
Okay.
Really, to be on topic, I'm excited to be on topic after the week break that like we have because we've done so many back-to-back episodes at this point. I feel like my brain is like movie night mush extravaganza.
Well, you can also just lay back. It's great to have Kristina back. Kristina, and welcome back, by the way. 36 minutes in. It's good to have you back at least for an episode.
Yeah.
But what I've been trying to get out for the last like 2 minutes is that I feel like adding some references to Twitter, most of the script still works. Like there's not that much. Like the media landscape obviously is like somewhat different, and the media cycles are different. And some of the references towards like decorum or whatever are just deeply hilarious in the era of Trump / post Trump. But like it still mostly works.
Yeah. It's like, oh, get ready, guys! In another 40 years, that's gonna go right out the window, especially with all the crap about Paul Pelosi's attempted assassination and all that crap.
Well, all right. So taking this conversation, or this part of it at face value, I think that Twitter is really the ultimate Bill McKayification of our communication, right? Because it's literally gives you 280 characters to write some kind of platitude. Like it
doesn't reward nuance. Yeah. Like that's totally
Every politician that writes something on Twitter is like a slogan, because you can only really write a slogan because what are you gonna do? Like Elizabeth Warren tweet storm where she's like, "Here's the thing," and then goes through like a 10. Like no one's gonna read that. So
1 of 40. Yeah. Oh my god.
Your Marvin Lucas when you're running is gonna say no one wants to actually read your policies or something like on in a Twitter storm. Like what they like, you can have a website for that, but like what they want to do is just hear your like your we need better leadership, or like this country's not getting led the right way and we should lead it. Like that's such an empty, vacuous. When he says that in the debate, like it's such a vacuous, shallow statement, right? Like the idea.
I mean, it's not like what does that even mean? Nothing. Like it's like, but it's great because it gets over, right? Like and that's like for the purposes of the narrative structure of the film, it's great. It's not great like culturally, it's terrible.
No, because like Mayor Pete took like notes from this and like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Well, I mean, even like every single politician that ran in 1980, they all said leadership, right? Like the thing that Carter had failed at, they said was leadership. He wasn't a leader. So like even Reagan's campaign plane said leadership 80. Like that was the name of the actual plane. So they all kind of took that part of the message. I mean, I don't know if they all watched this movie, but I'm assuming everyone that at least was a campaign worker probably watched this movie.
Oh, it's very popular. Campaigns for sure. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you're looking at someone that's a Republican, like Republicans don't really have that same idealism or something, right? Like what was a Republican going to do? Like really, I mean, you can kind of do like anti-corruption slogans and be like, we're going to drain the swamp, or whatever, but like you don't, but you're not actually like, they want more money for lobbyists. They want that corporate revolving door. That's what they're all going to go to. Democrats too, but Republicans more than like no Republican is going to say, "Hey, we need to end the the revolving door between Congress and the lobbying," which is really the thing fucking us right now. Like corporations and Congress just have a nonstop revolving door. The same people that are like writing gun legislation, like a year later when they retire or something, go into like working for fucking Lockheed Martin or something. So like that's why nothing gets done. So in that sense, Republicans I think are just more open about that in the sense of like, they're not going to openly fight it because that's, money daddy. So like, it's harder for a Republican is what I'm saying to be the Bill McKay, like young idealistic person to go in there and be like, we're going to really shake things up and then, get spit out the other side. Whereas Democrats, how many, like every single one of them. Like how many, like nobody wants to like be known as a centrist as their main thing, right? Nobody wants to like come into Congress and be like, I'm the center.
Are you sure about that?
Like,
you might be surprised.
I mean, there are.
I don't agree with that, by the way, but I'm gonna let it slide.
I'm saying that like young people that want to go into Congress.
Yeah, like
right?
people can be idealistic and be right wing. Like there are people that are they're not my ideals, but they are idealistic. And they do get quote unquote corrupted by the system in similar-ish ways, usually towards corporate interests, right? But like just because they're not our ideals doesn't mean they're not idealistic, and I think that's important to remember when we're thinking about politics. And additionally,
I'm talking about this movie though. Like his politics are things like like fighting for the poor, fighting for civil rights,
and back then, and I'm just gonna talk over you because you talked over me with this, is that like it would have been like privacy. It would have been like, the government overreach, like things along those lines, right? And those are idealistic concerns as well. Now that's just like nobody cares about that. We all like gave that away in 2002 with the Patriot Act. Like that's just over.
Well, there also used to be liberal Republicans.
There used to be that's what I was going with this. There used to be, they were known as like Rockefeller Republicans, right? Where they were like definitely pro corporate, but they're okay with the gays and like whatever. You could be count on them to
I mean, basically like Hillary Clinton or Nancy Pelosi is now.
You would be now, yeah, exactly. Where there's in supportive of certain policies, but like ultimately like for profit and for economic growth, inflationary tendencies, moving towards deficit reduction, so on and so on, but not total monsters that wanted like immigrants to be like put in cages and things along those lines. And I think it's important to note that one of the reasons why this film resonates is that it does cross party lines. Because again, what we would think of as idealistic wouldn't necessarily be idealistic for someone coming from like a more libertarian background or something along those lines, right?
Or even
and vice versa.
Background.
Precisely. On some days, yeah. But I think that it's totally notable that like this movie is about someone getting corrupted by the system or running for office. And by the time they get there, they stand for nothing. And Bill McKay stands for nothing. He stands for the Democrats. Yay, fly the flag, right? Which you could easily say the same thing about a whole bunch of like milquetoast gruel Republicans as well. If you come from that side of the which I don't know, they would never be watching this show, but like, if you come from that angle, it's one of the reasons it works and why campaign people fucking love this movie.
Well, there's the few that there are out there right now. It's like there's that one guy that left the Republican Party to become kind of like a libertarian or whatever that's in Congress right now. Like I think that the thing is that Republicans have gone so far off the rails at this point that there isn't two wings of the Republican Party. It's just a rush to go as far reactionary, right as
the political landscape 100% different now. For sure.
But 100% at this time, there was a liberal wing to the Republican Party. There was a moderate wing to the Republican Party. Yeah. And yes, there were people that were plenty idealistic. There were civil rights Republicans at the time. It's just that they all got purged out by the fucking Reagan administration. Hunted down. Like literally they created CPAC to hunt those people down.
Exactly. People forget about the origin of CPAC. It's 100%
CPAC really happens like every 3 months. It drives me nuts.
but I think that but one of the reasons why this movie endures and is interesting is if you have interest in politics, why didn't we start with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Why do you think? Well, because everyone knows that story, right? Everybody thinks they're Mr. Smith when they go to Congress.
People still think AOC is supposed to play that role, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, but she ain't gonna come waving a hammer and sickle flag for you guys. I'm sorry.
And she's not going to be like Billy Jack either, doing martial arts on these.
There you go. Got the Billy Jack in. There you go.
Billy Jack goes to Washington, 1977.
If you look at the real story of fucking Frank Capra, that our good friend Joseph McBride uncovered with that book, like there's a lot of shit there where Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is probably the opposite of what Frank Capra would have actually wanted to vote for.
Sure. But as far as like the narrative function of
I know, I just think that's more of an interesting story than that movie, because I don't find that movie particularly interesting.
I think that movie has its place, but I think it is in black and white, but it's a very black and white film compared to the color of the candidate. Like starting with this, I think it's perfect.
The nuances.
Because because our modern politics, even though like really this is a 50-year-old movie, right? Like it started like this, like with the like image being the image being everything, like the image being like, and politics being a naturally corrupting influence is not a new idea, but it being the default state, again, going from satire to unfortunate reality to aspirational vision board for some people, is, it's a sad, sorry state of affairs, but I think it makes sense for where
that is something that fully came in on two different like both political parties, because Roger Ailes working with Nixon as like the consummate like this is what works for television, this is what doesn't,
right?
Like
be telegenic.
Yeah.
They call it telegenic. They call it telegenic, folks.
Yeah, learning about all that with Roger Stone and like Roger Ailes back in the 70s, how they really started to make what today's Republican Party is all about. I was like, I hate you guys so fucking.
I really wish that Bombshell movie had been good, because it really wasn't. But that story deserves to be told in a better way.
But like at this exact same time, right? Like Jimmy Carter running for president had Goodell as like one of the people, and I can't remember what the other guy's name is that he had, is like literally the guy kind of tailoring his image and actually like doing each part of his image, and like they started Rafshoon, Gerald Rafshoon, because they had the term like Rafshoonery, which literally meant that telegenic, superficial like cons, pretty much, right, that you do on TV.
I heard that's what Dr. Oz said a charcuterie board was.
Oh, guys. This is not necessarily a topic, but has there ever been a politician that you saw in person that you're either wooed by with their speech or were like completely confuzzled by what they said? Because I went to Benedict College, was like a predominantly like Black university in South Carolina, and they're hosting a criminal justice forum. And so we saw Bernie, we saw Buttigieg, we saw Van Jones, we saw Amy. Well, we left for Amy. We were not going to deal with her. But Kamala Harris, they were asked about like, African-American issues, clearly, like what we like about like police officers. And Kamala Harris said this, and I quote, as a solution, if you were to get pulled over by a cop as a Black man, the only thing that stops a gun is a job.
Wow. That's
to be fair, what Black men does Kamala Harris even know?
Just when I heard that, we all looked at each other like,
around him.
We all looked at each other like, what?
She is the whitest husband I've ever seen anybody have ever.
And your father, by the way, Donald J. Harris, is freaking awesome. But
he's a Jamaican Marxist, and he came out and said that he does not like Kamala Harris's politics.
Well, Pete Buttigieg's dad was a Marxist too.
Yeah,
it's like it's the Alex Keating effect from.
Yes, they all have parents who were like hard leftists, and I'm like, what the hell? That's why I'm like,
Pete Buttigieg's dad ran the Gramsci Society out of the college. He ran the Gramsci Society out of Notre Dame, and was good friends with Richard Wolff.
Yeah, remember he also was like the first person to translate Gramsci into English. Like, how indebted is Michael Brooks to Pete Buttigieg's dad?
He also translated Fanon into English at one point, like works that nobody had fucking ever, I guess, translated. And so there was like some weird essay where Pete Buttigieg was like quoting fucking Fanon and like.
Now, could you see anybody else? I know this movie was Robert Redford's passion project because he really wanted to make a film like this. Could you see anyone else playing him? Like, were they any other good looking?
Yeah. Paul Newman. That's all.
Yes.
If they're going more Jewy.
Paul Newman.
That's that from around this time. I can't think of anyone else that would have the star power to be able to pull it off. Because the thing is, because the point of like a lot of the Bill McKay effect, if you will, is the fact that he has natural charisma, right? And a lot of that has to do with it's the same kind of stuff that, again, we talked about, like Ronald Reagan being a movie star and that translating over into politics versus governor then as president. Yeah. It's a certain way you carry yourself. Arnold Schwarzenegger, same sort of deal. Like that, it is a small echelon of people that would have the interest in doing it. Because remember, at the time of doing this was kind of like a left, so to speak, left field choice to like make a election movie, period. But also have one about it, basically the candidate like sort of like losing the idea of like what it was he was running for in the first place.
Imagine John Wayne being in that film.
I have a.
I could see them as the other guy. Maybe.
Yeah.
I have a really amazing clip that I would.
But he'd be too cool. He'd be too cool to be that guy. That guy is like a charisma void, and that's the point. It's the Crocker
well, the other thing too is like if you ever met even like local politicians. I remember a couple years ago I got to meet my representative at the State House, and really charismatic guy. He's a fat fuck. And I say that because he's also anti-trans. He's anti-trans motherfucker who could who should get have a heart attack or whatever.
Not a nice person.
But like when you
not our best people.
He also really supports the arts. So like good on him for that. But I know it pisses me off that he's like this hateful.
How dare you have nuance, sir?
But anyways, but the thing is though, is when you meet him, he is immediately likable. You know what you should do. You don't know anything about him because I didn't know anything about him.
You should somehow get a grant to make art that he's financing, and then do like a mural of a fucking trans flag. Like a huge trans flag on a building.
Or have all transgendered artists make the art.
Honestly, there's actually a bunch of stuff like that around here. I'm actually really ticked off because a few blocks from my house there is a non-binary sign, and my kids wanted to get their pictures taken next to it, and when we went to go do it, somebody defaced it.
Damn. See, we have the opposite thing. We had these middle school kids that painted this huge American flag mural, and somebody ran up with red paint and defaced it, so there was blood all over the flag. And then Laura Ingraham yelled at us on Fox News, and called us and called everyone in this town jihadi terrorists or something.
Well, I mean, she got it right with you.
There was a march against the flag, and people wore like the black Antifa mask, and she's like jihadi terrorists. But I have an amazing clip, and I don't know how I'm going to exactly segue this. So this is Robert.
Just leap into it, man.
This is Robert Redford talking about how on the promotional trail for the candidate, he found out about Watergate.
Wow, that's right. Then, of course. Yeah.
And then began trying to hunt down Bernstein, to try to get information, and he wouldn't give it to him because this was at a time when obviously nobody knew who that was. Like he was just some, nobody like Washington Post reporter. Like
he's name checked in this movie.
He's name checked in oh no, sorry, yeah, Bernstein and Woodward. That was the pair of the two of them. But
one of them gets name checked in this movie,
and they also name check. They have a big name check to fucking Which
is funny, of course, because all the president's men. Who is it? It's Robert Redford and who did we just talk about?
Paul Newman.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They also they name check one of those famous columnists that I always put their name. I'll check while we're doing it. But there's the famous basically Washington gossip columnists that they check, who are the ones that break the story about about Robert Redford.
This is
Martha
unique.
Mitchell was right.
But so this is the story of Robert Redford finding out about Watergate they did a whistle stop tour where they went around like Robert Redford actually was a candidate and like running for an office, right? They pretended he was to see if they could get more people to go to that than to go look at Ed Muskie or because Ed Muskie was running at the time and just whoever was around really, I guess. And so they tried to McGovern, they tried to see if they could out crowd them. So that was an earlier clip that he talks about that. But this is how
people actually did vote for him, right? That's the thing is he actually got some votes.
He was trying to Bernie. He was trying to Bernie them.
So this is his story about how he left that to go back on the train and then found out about Watergate there.
Nice.
Oh wow, wild. Okay.
So I went inside, and while I was making a fool out of myself on the back, the entertainment people were mostly drinking and falling asleep, and the political people were drinking and gossiping. And they had lost interest in me already, and they were talking about what had just happened at the Watergate and Larry O'Brien's headquarters for the DNC. And so they were talking about what went on there because there had been this break-in and then just died away. What happened? Nobody really knew. So I said, hey, you guys, what are you talking about that break-in, right? And they said, yeah. This was about 2 weeks after the break-in, is early January 1972. And they said, yeah. we are. And I said, well, so what happened? They said, don't even bother asking. I said, what do you mean? And they said, it's never going to come out. I said, what's never going to come out? And they said, what happened? I said, what do you, and so anyway, it was leading to the point that it had something to do with Nixon. And finally they said, look, you just don't understand how it works. This is never going to come out. There is a story here, but it's never going to come out because nobody wants to be on the wrong side of this guy because he's got a switchblade mentality and he's vindictive. He'll punish the paper, and nobody wants to go there. Also, it's the summer of 1972, and more people are going to be interested in whether Hank Aaron breaks Babe Ruth's record. And nobody pays attention to politics. So I got pretty upset about that, and I got off the train. I didn't even I didn't finish it off. I was kind of depressed. And they said, it's never going to come out. So I went home. I read the paper just to see if this was true. Sure enough, for about a week and a half, there was nothing. And then finally, I saw this little blurb with a dual byline, just a little teeny thing saying something about. And then a few days later, another blurb kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and always had the same two names. I didn't pay attention to what the names were. I just remember there was always two names. And finally, the thing built up through the summer, and it blew sky high in September. Donald Segretti and the Dirty Crit. And the whole thing blew wide, and they said, who's been doing this? And I saw this little article about the profile of two guys. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I said, no, I'd love to know what that was like. And I thought in my head at that time, I said, wow, what a nice little black and white film that would be with two unknown actors to play these guys and tell the story that nobody would know about, because it eventually led to Nixon resigning and so forth. Anyway, so that was the idea. And I thought, well, I'll call Woodward and I'll call Bernstein and see if I can meet with him. They never returned my call. And so time went on. I called a few times, and finally I thought, well, forget about it. And the guys were right. They said, nothing's ever going to come out of this. So the two guys that were trying just sort of went underground. And finally, I got a hold of Woodward. And I said, hey, it's Bob Redford. I want to know if I could talk to you. And he said, not a good time right now. He said, it's really not so. And I don't think it's right. Maybe not. So I thought, okay. And he kind of blew me off. He said it wasn't a really good time. So I went on. And then suddenly, and it looked like this whole thing had gone away. And then suddenly, Judge Sirica gets a note from James McCord in jail. It says, I have to confess, we were hired by the committee to reelect. And suddenly the thing just blew back sky high. And I said, wait a minute. So I called Woodward and I said, no, look, can I just come talk to you? He said, meet me at the MPA home in Washington. Saturday night, I was making The Sting in Chicago. Saturday was going to be okay. So I said, okay, so I'll go in. I said, where do I find you? He said, I'll find you. And I said, what do you look like? I'll find you. So I go to the MPA home. It's a bad movie playing there. And people are looking at me like, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I wanted to see this movie. Really? And suddenly there's Woodward right in my face. He says, Bob Woodward. And I said, oh, well, and boom, he cuts me off. He's not here. He says, go to the Jefferson Hotel bar. You leave first. I'll meet you there in 45 minutes. So I did. Anyway, getting to the point where we had that meeting, and I said, look, I just want to know what you guys did. And I'm interested in that story. He says, now's not a good time here. I have an apartment in New York at that time. They said, we'll find you. So they came up. He and Carl came up, and we spent 8 hours. And they told me the whole story, but it was still going on. They were still investigating, and they were going after Charles Colson. And I said, well, they said, look, we're going to write a book about this. And I said, well, I'm only interested in you guys. Whatever happens, history will take care of that. But I'm interested in what story nobody knows. So they talked to their editor, and the editor said, interesting idea, but I want to get as much money for you guys as I can. So you're going to write a book. Why don't we just say he has to wait until the book's finished?
We want to get as much
And we'll
money
give
as we
him the
could for the
movie rights.
Washington Post, too.
Right. And so I had to wait for 9 months for them to finish the book. Anyway, we finally got it. We got it going. And Pakula.
that I feel like that I could just listen to him talk about this for like another the rest of the show, and I'd be good. Like that's super compelling because, of course, All the President's Men. You know, one of the bigger movies he's been in. Like it didn't win Best Picture. Rocky won that year. But obviously it's huge.
All the President's Men. Sylvester Stallone's.
Sylvester Stallone as
I'm Bob Woodward, and I'm here to break the story.
It like ends with him in a boxing match with Richard Nixon.
Also, same year.
He went the distance, though. Nixon never forgot it.
Same year as Network as well, by the way. So strong year for movies.
Not sure how much you guys know about like Bob Woodward and the, I mean, he's covered obviously, Watergate is what he's most known for, but he obviously covered the Bush administration, and then the Trump administration. He didn't release the fact because he wanted to release his book or whatever. Until the book came out, he didn't release the fact that Trump knew about COVID and admitted to him that COVID was going to be a problem, and like they had all the information about it until a year after. Because so it's like when he's like,
I want to sell some books.
Yeah.
Sell some books. That's it.
Useless.
When he was like, yeah, I probably should have told everyone,
Yeah, he probably fucking should have. Yeah, exactly. But I think it's compelling that this movie did win an Oscar. This movie, The Candidate, what we're talking about today, for the script, for screenplay, yeah.
And well deserved too. I think because it is a good satire. Could it have been brushed up a little bit here and there? Sure, but you could say that like about anything.
They wrote it in a month, dude.
Yeah, like you can say that about anything whenever it gets to the end. But it's
I think it's pretty damn good.
Andy World got notes.
I think it's pretty damn good. No, I think it's pretty damn good for writing it in a month. Like that's a pretty impressive feat. The other he
cocaine's
obviously
a hell of a drug, man.
He also worked on it with Robert Town, who you might know as Chinatown.
Yeah, maybe you've heard
he's
of
the
him.
town in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just like J. Angel World stars in The World's End.
Yes.
See, but the thing is that Bob Woodward never wasn't a sellout. Like he was just he was
just portrayed by like one of the great leading men of his time as like a crusading altruist.
Yeah,
in a good
movie.
movie.
He wasn't like
had no
Daniel
basis
Ellsberg
in
or
reality. It's not reality. It's not a documentary. He's like, again, if there's Bernstein's not so bad. Bernstein's, I guess, a dude is like more, knows his place in history a little better and is like less full of himself. Woodward is honestly not.
Well,
not as great as history.
Two of them were like the Z tier Washington Post reporters. They were the crime beat at a time when crime was running rampant, but like it wasn't like crime was the the A tier of it. They're like the New York Post basically kind of reporters. You know what I mean? I mean that wasn't around yet, but like New York Post kind of like let's make these snappy crime stories, and they stumbled into finding out about Watergate. And then for the next 2 years, really couldn't put the story together because so much stuff was coming out about it that they were just writing story after story after story. There was a long time when nobody.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. That was just too good.
Hangs a dong.
Dolph Lundgren as Woodward and Bernstein.
There was a long time where nobody was putting the Watergate story together at all because they were just like crime reporters that just kept finding out like massive troves of information that they didn't have the time to like put onto the fucking Charlie Day map from It's Always
Because
Sunny.
what happened was
the
the two FBI agents that were investigating the Watergate scandal did not know until later on that the head of the FBI, after what's his face died, thank God, was
J. Edgar Hoover.
Stuff
It's Mark Felt. Yeah, it's not anybody with any altruistic notions. Mark Felt was just pissed that he didn't get promoted.
Yeah. He was like, oh yeah, guys, by the way, with this investigation, I've been letting the administration know everything that's been going on. They're like,
yeah.
What the fuck, dude?
But not because out of some great altruism or like the common good at all. Just like he was pissed he didn't get the call up. All right.
Well, the most ironic thing about it is that the Watergate break-in only happened or was only allowed to happen because J. Edgar Hoover died. right? J. Edgar Hoover was not willing to give Richard Nixon.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mark Felt.
J. Edgar Hoover was not, ironically enough, not willing to give up enough of his own power to create, to turn the FBI into a Nixonian apparatus, right?
Yo,
They were like,
G.
we're our
Gordon Liddy
own
was a fucking
spying apparatus.
psychopath, too.
So J. Edgar Hoover died, and 6 weeks later, Nixon had replaced him with his own loyalist and they had already set up the fucking break-in.
John Dean said, "Hey, here's like a safe. Can you please destroy all this evidence of like past president crimes, please?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." John Dean, let me tell you something about John Dean for a second. He's the one that's responsible for all of Watergate because he's the one who hired G. Gordon Liddy in the first place. Yet he got slapped on the wrist.
By the way, G. Gordon Liddy started out as he was in Congress for a really short amount of time in the next county over from me where Poughkeepsie is. He was like the Dutchess County congressman or whatever. He also pulled a gun out. And fired it in a courtroom as a lawyer. He was like, "Look, he did it like this," and fucking fired.
That would ensure his election now.
Yeah.
Well, no,
in 1990, he played an Asian villain in a TV pilot for a bad sci-fi show.
We just hit the coconut of off topic, but the whole point of all that is that
there's a joke I really want to make that I can't make, but I really want to make it, but I can't make it.
Shut up.
I'd say wait for the after party, but we're not doing one today. I think what I did not know, because I love this movie, and actually at some point we should cover All the President's Men. I think that'd be a fun one to do.
Absolutely.
But he found out about Watergate like while filming this movie. That's amazing. Like that's incredible confluence of time, especially considering that that Robert Redford, like, you know, again, that was a big movie. He didn't get, I think the only one, I think that movie got a supporting actor nod. I don't think he got a nod for best actor on that. But as far as when people think of the great Robert Redford movies, that's like one of the 3 or 4 that they think of. I do.
I mean, apparently when that lady that was interviewing him, and I have one other clip from it too, thinks of good Robert Redford movies, she literally just thinks of the candidate.
I think the candidate too. I mean, I think it's amazing, obviously, but like, yeah, she's more fixated on this. She should be on this show. Yeah. We should have her on. Anyone got her number?
Well, no one's been able to reach her since Robert Redford taught her how to work a crowd.
I was gonna say she's probably still asking him questions. that interview's still going on. Actually, he filmed the old man and the gun on a bathroom break. Anyway.
I got a chance to meat
anybody
Robert Redford's
that kills at Sundance. Thank you.
I got a chance to meet Robert Redford's son James at Woodstock Film Festival. Unfortunately, he passed away during the pandemic because he, I guess, had liver problems his whole life, and also I think probably exacerbated them by his whole career was as an environmental filmmaker. And he would go to all these places that had like a huge amounts of toxins, which is what you kind of need your liver for, and already had liver problems.
It's literally the function of the organ, yeah.
But so the same Woodstock Film Festival weekend that Bill Pullman roasted me, he was there with a movie that he had just made with a bunch of people, and I got to meet him, and we like, you know, we interviewed him. He was trying to go to dinner though, and did not want to talk to a bunch of college students that our whole grade for that semester rested on these interviews. And he was just like, he was not trying to talk to. He's like,
he just
I
wanted
gotta
to go to dinner.
And so we had to like be like, listen, our grade for this semester is, can we get interviews with, like, we have, like, that's because we're working for the, you know, the film festival. They don't pay anyone, so they get college kids to do it. So there's a class that goes into it. So I got to talk to him. Like, we got to talk to him for like 2 minutes. B. Gordon Diddy.
Fantastic. A+. I have no notes. That's great. I have no notes. I suppose Andy apparently has lots of notes about the screenplay, but anyway.
You know, Connie told me that money went to, never mind.
Please.
Good times.
But it's yeah, I mean, like, it's almost to I guess to review that interviewer, right? Like, she's almost like talking about like how do you have charisma as a politician, which is, again, it's something that like really can't be taught. Well, yeah, that's at least like 40 to 50% of it, right? But I will say that I've seen people that are like not good looking people that do have charisma. Some people just have like that.
I mean, he was good looking.
Look at all this.
I'm right here.
Look at all my natural charisma.
It's exuding. It's so much charisma coming off. I don't know what to do about it.
I remember when Bernie first happened, like in 2016, people were like, why are people wooed by this guy? He's a frumpy old man who hunches over his podium that's not even a full podium. And I'm like, it's the shit he's spewing, man.
And it's how he says it, and that he has absolutely no time for any nonsense whatsoever, and is utter just like what people think. People that don't like him think of him.
Hi, Bernie. I just want to say hi.
What people what people thanks for that. Yeah, okay, forgot about that one. What people think is like detrimental aspects when they don't like him are actually massive assets. Like the fact that like he just is like when he's uninterested in something, he'll just like just like kind of slide it to the side immediately, like
that one interview where he's just like, "We're only talking about these topics. We're not talking about anything else." And it's just like, "What do you think about Britney Spears? It's not on the list."
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a certain style and panache that comes from being like an affable curmudgeon. I should know.
Yeah, that's true too.
But I think that like it's interesting that she was so interested in hearing about oh boy, comment section's killing me. I think it's
wait, this
is good. Yeah, great.
This is a perfect example of Bernie's charisma.
This is perfect.
Look, I don't tolerate bullshit terribly well. And I come from a different background than a lot of other people who run the country. I'm not good at backslapping. I'm not good at pleasantries. If you have your birthday, I'm not going to call you up to congratulate you, say you love me and you write nice things about me. That's not what I do. Never have. And I take that as a little bit of a criticism, self-criticism. I've been amazed at how many people respond to, "Happy birthday. Oh, Bernie, thanks so much for calling." It works. It's just not my style. I try to stay focused on the important issues facing working families in this country, and I fight for them.
I don't give a fuck about your birthday. Y'all can die in a fire. It doesn't matter to me.
Such a Virgo, though. Oh my god.
I love like multiple people in that room are like, people wish me birthday all the time. Wish me my birthday all the time. I wonder if they want something from me. Like they're having like epiphanies and are like generally annoyed while that's happening.
The one woman that gave him a bunch of side eye just kind of looks like that, and actually I think was the one person on the panel that voted for Bernie to be there,
really?
And then got unfairly completely roasted for giving the side eye, and then
he's got a resting side eye face.
Yeah,
they endorsed Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris over Biden.
That's I mean, it was Klobuchar.
2019
right?
was a different time.
It really was.
They ended up picking Warren and Klobuchar both and saying it's the year of the woman, and then they both dropped out.
Yeah. Astounding move. Like seconds later, they dropped out basically. But I think the idea that a charismatic politician, like the charisma could be taught. I mean, there's been many like books, TV shows, movies, all kinds of media that, and some people like a motivational
The Art of the Deal.
Seminars that are designed to make you think that you can do that. But honestly, for the most part, you can't. You can mitigate the things that make you annoying sometimes. And boy, would I love to foist that upon certain parties, not on this panel, of course, but in media, because that would be a nice gift, maybe for their birthday or not, to be like, here's how to be less obnoxious. But I think that you can't teach charisma for the most part, and I think there is some correlation towards physical attractiveness to a certain degree, but not always. Again, no. that was a charismatic exchange, man. He owned that room. He fucking owned that room. And they know that they got owned, and it probably factored into a couple of them being like, hey, screw him.
And it's just like my Senator Fat Fuck.
As he'll henceforth be known, yes.
Wait, Alex Jones ran as a senator?
No. I mean, I don't usually like to size shame, but this guy was morbidly obese, and he's a terrible human being. So it's like, I'm going to just talk about his one, physical characteristics. So whatever.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, you don't need to keep explaining it. It's all right.
Yeah.
But wait, I'm missing it. Was he skinny?
So he was a good dude, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So he ate the skinny guy.
All right, that's enough. So what
They're
about this
bringing
dude?
they're bringing crime. They're bringing food, and some of them, I assume, are
They're
nice
bringing fattening dishes only. We don't want the fattening dishes. We want the lean dishes.
You want the Big Macs?
Yeah, he does want the fattening dishes. That'd be Diet Trump.
Trump was kind of.
You talk about Diet Trump, you think you're talking about Ron DeSantis. No, it's just Trump who
I can't
likes healthy
believe people
foods.
think that
God
Trump
damn
is
it, that
like
was a good bit. I wish I could have got it
in
out. Oh.
fit shape. I'm like, he's not.
My
He'd be,
favorite
like, obsessed with the Wendy's salad bar.
my favorite Trump tweet of all time, and I know it by heart, is I've never seen a thin person drinking a Diet Coke. And it came out later that Trump would drink 6 Diet Cokes a day.
My favorite Trump tweet is when I called him overrated and responded on the toilet at Trump Tower and called me a moron, and it was just riddled with errors in the tweet.
Wait, he responded?
Yep.
So you got tweeted at by Trump?
Yeah, back in like 2013.
That's
He
hilarious.
called Jon Stewart overrated, and I was like, "No, dude, you're overrated." He's like, "By who? A moron like you?" And I'm like, "First
Oh
of
yeah,
all,
what Trump used to do the thing where he would quote tweet and then do write like RT and like
yes,
like,
that's what he did.
RT
And he
quote
wouldn't
tweet.
for a full week. He wouldn't let it go that he got owned by a 19-year-old on Twitter.
Elon Musk should bring back the fact that bring back those quote tweets where you have to actually write the person's tweet out. It used to be hilarious to change people's tweets and like make them like sound slightly gay or something like that. And then the person would get like fucking pissed off because I don't know. At the time, I only followed my homophobic ass friends that would like go to parties with
I was
me.
gonna say I'm learning so much in this episode.
Well, no,
like
like,
welcome our Criterion Collection friends for watching this. Yeah.
No, but like I used I don't know, like I used to have a bunch of friends that would just go party and shit, and like that's the
I
only
got
people
it
that
immediately.
really followed me like at the time that was happening, because like I don't know, I didn't get into like left Twitter until way later. I was on regular Twitter and just like normie posting, so I would just like do that to like my homophobic ass friends, and they would be like, "Come on, man, that's not what I said." I was me, but just without finding my place.
So you can't teach charisma, but Robert Redford has it. Bill McKay has it. So many other politicians in our lifetimes have had it. Some of them with a platform, Bernie Sanders. Some of them without, and some of them that cynically adopted one, John Edwards. That maybe they cared about it, maybe they didn't, maybe they thought that was their angle. It's really compelling to me to like watch that kind of become the default, really, like where it's like, oh yeah, issues, well, who cares about that? And then everything, I mean, all the Beltway cares about is process stories, and all like the media cares about is, you know, like facile attributes, and it has more to do with celebrity than anything else. And like, look at Obama, our first celebrity president, right? You know, like, I mean, like, granted, Trump was an actual celebrity before becoming a politician, but you can't tell me that Obama wasn't like a celebrity, right? I mean,
Kennedy and then Obama, but yeah, I mean, Obama was our first modern.
Yeah, but Kennedy never got a Netflix deal because, you know, he got killed. If he lived longer, he would have got.
he would have got a Hulu deal. Actually, it would have been it's competitive.
It is kind of funny that Obama beat.
Watch Hulu. Thank you.
Obama kind of beat Trump to becoming a media mogul.
Yeah, and that you think that doesn't chap that dude's side? Of course it does.
Oh,
that's all he wanted. That's all he wanted.
That's why he ran for president, because he was like, I want to be the celebrity. I'm like, you're already a celebrity though.
But he wanted, he wanted it to use it to bolster his image, which is deeply interesting because in this movie, the whole pitch for Bill McKay is that it's gonna bolster your image, because he writes down the thing like, you know, you lose. Right, like that. Here's the message for like why it's going to be okay for you to do this. You lose, and how do we feel? So since we've gone round and round about all these different things, he's not a single baby. it's not. He's not a single man. Like, how do we feel about his partner? I mean, do you think that like, because she's almost like
which one? No.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Right, is that like you have like, okay, so if he's like Kennedy, then clearly Karen Carson's character is going to be like the Jackie O in this situation, but then it's not just hinted at, it's basically shown that it's like, oh yeah, he's fucking around. Like he's like getting a little bit too into the role, right? He's fine.
Hey, maybe you want to go all the way with Bill McKay.
Getting into that voting booth and sliding in your car.
That's enough. That's
Just slide it on in.
The Ballad of the Boner. This is
Just filling in those bubbles.
See, I almost wish the after parties could come back so we could get this all out on that. But but it's fascinating to me because it's like I think she, to a certain degree, is the Karen Carlson character is absolutely like the textbook like political wife, right? Like like there's that whole thing where there it's like the meet and greet, and then they're like, oh, you're the best looking political spouse here, like whatever they say, like and like the idea that
nice
like
smile. She's got a very nice, yeah.
She does have a nice smile, but it's like, but it being like, but showing that side of things, like that the meat market where, oh yeah, it doesn't actually matter what you stand for. It matters if you look like the part, right? Which goes back to politics basically being like a cattle call, and politics being closer to a celebrity than anything else.
I don't know how much you guys took this out of it. This is responding to what you're saying, but like it's interesting that he's not all in on it the entire movie, right? Like he's not being like, oh, I'll quit, and like I could just. And she at some point she's like, no, like you're going to this, like you're not. There's no way that you can quit by now. Like also Marvin Lucas tells him that, but she's like full in on the role or whatever. And it's interesting to see her buy in, I think 100% faster than he does.
Yeah. I mean, I think it says something about her faith in him, and the fact that like she's a good supportive partner, which is doubly sad that he fucks around on her. But unfortunately, emblematic of politics that.
And then he gets all
That's
pissed
what
off.
John Edwards took away from this movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only lesson that John Edwards learned from that movie. Well, you can have sex with anyone you want. Oh, I didn't know.
And the entire room has to wait for you, including your dad.
Yeah. How do we feel about the dad character? Because I think that was an interesting.
I wondered whether his dad was supposed to be like a New Deal kind of. I mean, not in the FDR sense, as in like he was all in on that, but like I wondered if his dad was kind of like a New Deal senator, like the old style. I mean, because he was the old style senator, but I was wondering like what party you guys thought his dad was part of, or like what political like movement. Because there's something with,
it's
like,
interesting because they don't really say.
Lyndon Johnson kind of, right, who's like one, like who's the great enemy of liberals like at this time, right? Like he ends up being kind of the great hero of liberals, which is kind of a fascinating switch in time. But like this time he's kind of the great bankrupt villain for the liberal cause. And there's something with him kind of starting out as an opportunistic New Deal, like FDR was his political hero, you know what I mean, as he was Reagan's, which is kind of weird. But but so that kind of mentality, but it's not people that actually believe that they should be helping the poor. It's people that opportunistically have bought into the Democratic Party platform at that time. And it's like, oh, well, if I'm going to be a great crusading progressive politician, there's no political cost to that. So that's something that I was,
AKA John Edwards.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously a little bit later, but like he certainly like was the inheritor, and like Pete Buttigieg, as Flavor Flav mentioned earlier, is another example of that, where you get all like the facile trimmings and sort of like good vibes of a movement without having to stand for any of the values of it.
Yeah, but even I think a little bit differently than that.
Stood on tables, or was that Beto?
It was Beto that always stood on tables. Yeah. It's really funny to Photoshop him on
Beto's standing on me right now.
No, I love Photoshop.
He's just out of frame, yeah.
but like, so there's a whole thing with I mean, especially with Eugene McCarthy calling both labor leaders, which he has the awkward back and forth with the labor leader that he really doesn't like, the Teamsters guy, and he accuses him of fucking over Cesar Chavez and the farm workers or whatever. Like there's that whole scene. I pick up on like those details in these movies more than like I feel like I don't know if the average.
There is a lot of details like that, and,
yeah,
and that's what makes it a good election movie.
But no, so there's a thing with specifically like McCarthy, who's the person that that they had worked for, like in real life, calling both labor leaders and like older politicians like old buffaloes, right? Like there's this idea that they're all corrupt. It's all this backhanding and glad handing and like backslapping, and I mixed the two up, but like I
was gonna let you run with it, but I definitely noticed.
So no, there's like glad handing and backslapping, and like they're all kind of doing these backroom deals. That's the whole thing with that they
glad
were
backing, slap hacking, yeah, all that.
And I'm sick as fuck.
Tracking, whatever.
Hand jobbing.
Slop topping. They're doing all but no, so like all they were really anti the backroom deals. They wanted, direct democracy, which everybody
if that's what's happening to them, I see why. Sorry. Sorry.
The smoke-filled rooms, there's a lot of hand jobbing going on in there.
You don't want to have full visibility.
But so there's like that idea, right?
Testifies.
But it makes it kind of fascinating that but it's like liberals that were seen as that, right? But it's a very specific kind of old school liberal, like the New Deal kind of liberal. Like Hubert Humphrey kind of took the entire 1948 Democratic Convention by storm with his like very pro civil rights speech. But then by 1968 he was considered like the sellout. I mean, Johnson administration stooge. Like
he was basically the most establishment dude. Like
yeah. And Johnson had the famous quote where he was like, I put his pecker in my pocket or something. And like, well,
Johnson always talking about dick.
Yeah, no. Well, he is President Johnson.
Fair.
But no, so there's that whole thing where it's like, a very specific kind of liberal who were then replaced in mass by the Watergate babies who, didn't like the seniority rules, didn't like all these different congressional things where they couldn't get on the right committees, and you had to kind of wait, and like there was a rule that you kind of just shut up for the first year and just kind of let the older people talk, and you couldn't really make your speeches. But they had come in on such a mass level that they were able to change all those rules within the Senate because they had a majority. And then they also kind of already within that like made deals with people like fucking Strom Thurmond to let certain Southern senators
oh god, when he died, the whole South Carolina just collapsed on itself.
But to a degree, right? Like their version of anti-corruption was ending the backroom deals, which also caused a fair amount of chaos and was very easy to sell out because they have no ties to normal people. They're just like, well, I'm going to be extremely idealistic. That's all I really am going to be. Like, I'm going to be the guy that comes in and like, I'm crusading. And then very quickly it's like, hey, you want some corporate cash? It's like, well, yeah, obviously I want that. Backroom deal.
Do we have to stay in this room with the hand jobs, or can we go out in the hallway?
Oh,
but it feels like
that joke would have killed 5 minutes ago. Anyway,
if there's one thing that
joke would kill in the back in the smoke.
That joke kills in the actual smoke.
But there's one thing that I learned.
Much like the smoke in the actual room.
You never ever go to an RNC because you will be invited to a nudist sex party. So Madison Cawthorn was absolutely right that the GOP hosts these parties. Like, you have to
that's why he got like basically excised from the party, right? It's because he
Yo, that was crazy, right? It's kind of crazy that happened so fast.
Yeah.
The wheelchair wheel didn't even have a chance to spin around.
Be like that scene from Mac and Me. Woo!
Oh, you mean the movie that Paul Rudd likes to bring up?
Yes.
God, this is just it's just the after party happening during the main show now. It's just one thing, man.
No, I mean we're talking about the actual thing.
You're talking about Mac and Me. Let's get real. But yeah, Madison Cawthorn, to be fair, deserves everything of what he got. But yes, it wasn't because he was a bad dude that he got. He got because he snitched about the sex parties.
Yeah, and as I called him before, I'll call it again. He's Hot Wheels Nazi.
Well, anyway, I'd say he told the story walking, but
I like that leading up to it, they kept they kept leaking the pictures of him with his hand on the campaign aide's knee or whatever, and they they kept just relentlessly leaking those pictures up to his loss. They were like, hey, here's a gay picture, and here's a gay picture, and every day there was like a new one. And it's like, dude, number one, how many of those did you take? Number two, like, damn, they've gone hard on the fucking Coke orgy story.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's media shaping narrative, which we'll get into with Wag the Dog later this month. How about that for a turnaround, right? Yes, I certainly hope so. Letterboxd is a place for film lovers, a social media site for film lovers to talk at, with, and to each other about the movies they love, the movies that they didn't love, the movies they got hand jobs in weird smoky back rooms in. All of these, of course,
Smokey and
there's
the Bandit. That's what it's about.
there's no Siskel's, no Eberts.
That's when you
Bottom
lose
up.
your wallet. That's when you lose your wallet while getting a hand job in the smoky back room.
Bottom up democracy, everyone gets to have their say. This is, of course, best expressed working your tight five in front of your brick wall at the Comedy Store. These are the classic one-liners. These are the one-liners from the letterbox for the candidate. Redford is very good, but Boyle has campaign manager nailed. I've worked for that guy.
Yo, but I heard he worked harder on Raymond's campaign than Robert's. Robert did not like that. Said, everyone votes for Raymond.
Yep, there you go. But I think that is true. It's the Boyle's campaign manager, which we didn't talk about even for like more than 2 or 3 seconds, but nailed it. Like, seriously, agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else, I don't know what more there is to say besides that. Like,
I mean, he nailed it. What is there to say? It's he's that dude. I mean,
well, I did want to talk about I love the bit. I messaged you guys about it, but I love the bit where every time they go to talk in private, someone's like, hey, you can't be back here, and he's like,
oh yeah, every single time. Yeah, exactly. Where can we be? Yeah. Apparently, only in the smoky room with the blowjobs. Thank you.
But where is that smoky room? It seems like every smoky room these days is, they're telling them they can't be in there.
Exactly.
Hey, this is a Turkish bathhouse. You can't be in here.
You can barely tell a joke on a college campus. Some of the whitest ties to ever hit the silver screen.
True.
Mm-hmm.
I like when they tell them to switch out the tie too. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, it was weird because he was parasailing with it at the time.
That's good.
They didn't have kites back then because they would just fly the ties out the back.
They just use their ties. It's multi-purpose.
Yeah.
By my calculation, Bill McKay starts as Bernie Sanders, who looks like JFK, turns into Barack Obama, then morphs into Bill Clinton, and ends in triumph with no idea who it's actually supposed to do. Like 45.
Yeah.
Perfect.
In my calculation, Bill McKay starts out as 1968 RFK and ends up at 1950 RFK when he was working for McCarthy.
Oh, God.
Please clap. It's an indictment of modern politics that people don't have the decency these days to give political candidates a hot dog before hitting them in the face.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great scene where you're like, yeah, hot dog.
Well, with inflation, you can't afford to even hand the candidate the hot dog anymore. What can you say?
Exactly. I need that back after I punch you. Thank you.
Those goddamn COVID checks making inflation in Europe insane.
I was that scene made me think of Henry Gonzalez, who was a Texas congressman, and apparently somebody called him a communist when he was campaigning in Texas. And Henry Gonzalez, who's like this elderly man, he was like an actual New Deal Democrat, not like a not somebody who was actually like writing the line, but somebody who was a true believer. Punched the dude out in like the 80s. It was great.
There you go. But
I'll show you a fucking.
You did not get a hot dog before that, though, right? To be clear.
No, there was no hot dog. I kind of wish he did have a hot dog to hand to the guy who called him a communist so he could punch him out.
It's a decline of American values.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was also. I had to double check this just now, but he was also on the House Committee for assassinations, which is the one that like was working at the same time as the one that John Kerry was on, and John Kerry at the end was like, "Hey, I think they actually did kill fucking JFK. Like he did get assassinated, and then still ran for president because apparently didn't care about that. Hey, the CIA could just assassinate a president. So anyway, I'm gonna run for president."
Anyway,
indeed. Bill McKay would have promised me a $2,000 stimulus check in January and ended up letting me down with a possible $1,400 stimulus check in March. But that's politics. So the movie has that right.
Yeah.
And John Ossoff, Bill McKay.
I was gonna say didn't say it aloud, but
yeah, but people did vote their ass off.
Hey everybody. He's not gonna get his ass kicked. He's cute.
Speaking of Game of Thrones over there a little bit, line from his dad.
Yeah, I mean it's hey. Ask the question: what if there was a senator who fucks?
That's the question Madison Cawthorn asked, and now he's not.
Yeah, it turns out maybe you shouldn't ask about that.
Yeah. But do we really want to know who's doing it, though?
It's Mitch McConnell. It's all Mitch McConnell.
It's Chuck Grassley, man.
Because like I learned that Rand Paul swims naked in the Congress pool, which is why women aren't allowed in there.
How did you learn that?
It's in the papers. Like he kind of brags about it. But apparently, like
Never
after
mind,
he got he found out he had COVID. The first thing he does is go swimming in the Congress pool, and I'm just like, wait, was he doing
Yeah, I
this
remember
naked
that.
while trying to spread people's?
I also want to say, Chuck, ask Gass or Grassley.
What do we do now?
Yeah, I ask myself that every time we do the show.
That's my line. One of the great closing lines in film, as far as I'm concerned. Like one of the all-time great.
Yeah, I mean, it leaves you feeling real hollow, though.
No, it's a bummer. It's a bummer.
And like fucking Marvin Lucas can't hear him, so he just like kind of walks out of the room.
Like,
He's
what?
Like, what do we do now?
I'm going to this smoky room while the hand jobs are happening.
You're on your own.
The movie Aaron Sorkin wishes he could make.
Yeah, because this is truly like The West Wing is a photocopy of this, a photocopy of a photocopy.
Well, I mean, you know, he does give a pretty good speech, and everyone's really into it. So
there you go. Every movie would be better if included a cameo of Natalie Wood as herself. Okay.
Amen.
Not Titanic, but
she wasn't playing herself in Titanic. Come on.
No, it's
a
drowning joke. I'm just gonna let it sit for a minute. Let's let that one marinate.
I know. I was just never mind.
Look, I always vote for the candidate who likes my pets the best. That is a great scene, by the way. When he's campaigning, it's like, how do you like my dog? It's a good dog, right? It's like, yeah, it's great. It's a great dog.
I think Bernie would. I think Bernie's the kind of guy who would like shake your dog's hand, be like,
yeah,
nice to meet you,
and just pat the cat's head. Just be like, don't do
it. This is a very nice cat. I
think he has cats.
Oh, he definitely has. Like, if he doesn't,
that would
he
not
does.
surprise me like at all.
He's a cat. He's a cat guy. Definitely. They say people who are more on the left actually are more cat owners than dog owners.
Well, I wouldn't surprise. It seems like it'd be a very pet-friendly household.
Yeah, that's why I've been waiting for Forrest's right-wing turn.
Yes.
I mean,
what are the fuck Glenn Greenwald's doing?
Look, whatever the fuck this bit is doing. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for the candidate. Please follow Movie Extravaganza on Letterboxd. That's your host Forrest over there. He's on there usually reviewing the movies we watch and nothing else. But if you want to keep track of the show, you can follow him over there. Follow me, Conan Leadership 2022 Neutron. I forgot I put it to that. On Letterboxd as well. I'm covering all kinds of stuff. Cats weed in outer space. Fantastic. What an agenda. J. Andrew Lanyard Puncher World is on there watching all the weird stuff so you don't have to, or maybe so that you can. Who knows? Robert Redford for Prez over there. Kristina Oakes on there. Mostly Johnny Depp related content, but she's got her beat, and we appreciate that about her, and we always appreciate having her on the show. Lanyard Puncher, J. Andrew World, take us away with the plugs, please.
All right. If you see somebody with a lanyard in Washington, D.C., please punch them for me.
I'll show you.
What if they have a clippy thing? What if they have like the clip guy? Is that still a lanyard?
I don't know.
They get a slap.
It's just like Bernie Mac in that scene where he gets off the train.
Clipboards, lanyard, ballots, lanyard, campaign literature.
If you've ever had
lanyard.
lunch in DC, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're watching us right now on YouTube, and notice I said if, so you can't pull that.
There's a bunch of people that already tuned out, so don't worry. Yeah.
Yes. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell if you haven't already, and watch this video to the end, because that really does help us out. And you can hear a wonderful, wonderful song by Conan Neutron. Great job again. Yeah. No
brass.
No brass. Whatever.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but yeah, no brass.
Yeah, I was a little bit looking forward to brass, but
I'll do the remix. I'll do a remix
But,
to Election Night Extravaganza.
You got to play to your strengths too.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually mad.
Exactly.
I'm like, no, it's a great tune. It's great. Really, even if it doesn't have brass.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I was able to mitigate your disappointment about the lack of brass.
No, hey, as long as the song slaps, it doesn't have to have brass.
Doth it slap? Question mark.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. More and more people are saying that on Twitter, which we happen to have.
We do.
Yes. So follow us on Twitter. Find out when shows are happening. We have a Twitter group community, and you can join that too. We occasionally have polls. We post our reviews of whatever we're watching. Stuff kind of related to past episodes, like that great article I found of Orson Welles writing
Movie
about
night, go to the polls.
Yeah.
That's what you jumped on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool, like, weird little piece of esoteric.
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, Orson Welles doing a movie review of a movie reviewed. So it was
I love a movie we've covered on this show, Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, which makes it kind of surreal, right? But
most hideous man alive.
Exactly. So yeah, join our Twitter group.
Nightmare Alley was what he was hiding in that scene in the in that movie. By the way,
yes, his face truly is a nightmare alley. But we have a Patreon too, and the Patreon helps out Forrest.
I mean, that's not inaccurate, but it's hilarious for you to phrase it that way.
No, but it really does help out the channel. It covers the expenses that we have to do this because we spend a lot of time and
we spend a lot of time in the hand job room, actually.
Yes, true. This is true.
Expensive. The maintenance, yep. The cleaning bills alone. Maybe we should go back to having the after parties. This is too much, right? Anyway.
Well, I think we'll have after parties like coming up soon. We had one on Friday.
That's fine.
I don't think we should have 2 a week.
It's the bit.
Yes. But if you haven't heard one of our after parties before,
by the way.
If you don't know what we're talking about with our after parties, you can become a member and listen to one of our actual after parties and understand why after parties are forever.
If you think after party
forever,
we're gonna work on that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and they are quite a bit of fun, and they're even more nonsense laden than this is. Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not this episode, but
this episode is, I don't know. This is the new bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of bar.
Yes. So Conan, you have
Conan, meet me. Conan, meet me at the bar. All right, we're gonna talk about the smoke-filled bathroom, back room.
I got a great idea for a smoke-filled bathroom. I don't want to hear that.
Here's the pitch. It's a bathroom.
This is disgusting on multiple levels.
Here's a pitch. It's a bathroom, but it's filled with smoke. You in?
Exactly.
Multi-level marketing, baby. That's what I do.
More and more.
Glad to get here.
So yeah, we had did you have Protonic Reversal this week or coming up this week?
Yeah, I was gonna say it hasn't happened yet, but I mean, yeah, Nick Stakes.
Oh yes.
Nick Stakes of Dazzling Killman and Upright Forms Colossamite Sick Bay coming up. Let's see. I got John Schmershel from Brainiac coming up shortly, and then I'm pretty sure it's still happening. East Bay Area and Klaus Florida of Dead Kennedys, but DH Pelegro, RIP, earlier this week. So if that doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen. But that's the next 3 episodes coming up.
So yeah, stay tuned for those. That sounds really exciting. But if you enjoy the music that you hear on this show, you can go to Bandcamp and purchase some of Conan's music. In fact, this Friday is Bandcamp Friday, where Conan will get all of your money. But you can get it vinyl, CD, digital, however you want to put it into your ears.
Yep. And we're gonna finally put up the 2 t-shirt designs we came up with for tour, the Froberg and the Dudes Yelling shirts, because people have been asking about it more and more. So Bandcamp Friday, we're gonna put up those t-shirts. which is good because they had a rear wheel alignment to do and a whole bunch of other expensive van things. So yeah, please buy my shit. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, this Friday he gets all the money. So as opposed to splitting it with Bandcamp,
Goes directly to Firestone.
Firestone gets all of Conan's money.
Right. Move to Extravaganza, brought to you by Firestone. Please.
Hey, we're getting a pretty competitive bid from Goodyear, so better jump on
right. There you go.
And no tour dates until later this month.
Yeah, it's actually coming up pretty soon. It's 3
I'm like, wait, it's not October anymore.
Yeah, 3 weeks from
Merry Christmas, bitches.
It's too soon for that. 3 weeks from this Friday, we'll be on the West Coast again. We're doing LA Joshua Tree and then the Makeup McCluskey show in Oakland, 25th, 26th, 27th. So we have 3 episodes after this before that, I think. 4 episodes. So plenty of time to talk about that. But definitely if you want to come to the Oakland show, buy tickets because it's getting pretty close to being sold out. And I think a lot of people
if you're on the West Coast and you want to see Conan
in Oakland only. Now. Probably tickets still available to for the other shows, frankly. But anyway, but that should be great. That's gonna be a hometown show for me. Haven't played Oakland since 2019, so I'm excited.
It'll be exciting, yeah. And Kristina, you have a Twitch channel that's fantastic that hasn't been on, but
she was on last night. What are you talking about?
Oh, I missed it because I was
checkmate liberal.
I was doing Halloween stuff with my kids, so there you go.
Right, well, how dare you be a good father? And
I
not be
know.
on Twitch.
Yeah. But what happened last night?
We just caught up. A lot has happened in the last 2 weeks I was gone. Way too much.
You're still catching people up right now.
Yeah.
And
that's very compelling. I was there, and I was like, well, yeah, it seemed more interesting than that, but okay.
Yeah. Anything coming up this week? Are you going back to
just streaming?
Just streaming. Excellent.
Or don't sit again.
Way to give him nothing, by the way. Just give him nothing at all.
I don't plan this shit out. I really don't.
Well, if you enjoy this,
sound great,
and you want to support their Patreon,
that's great. I'm streaming. All right.
I'm streaming.
Things you can say on the internet or the urologist.
Doc, I got a Twitch. I'm streaming.
Oh my god, we need to bring the after parties back. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Yes.
But yeah, Kristina had one on Friday.
Come on, do it a bit, man. Jesus fucking Christ. Land your puncher, please. You have the floor.
Yeah, I was just gonna say something about. I should just change this to like Forest Puncher. But you have a Patreon to support you for all your stuff. And so please support Kristina's Patreon. I'm sure there's exciting stuff there too.
Yeah, I really gotta keep up with that one. It's just I've been so busy at the end of the year. Everyone wants their houses cleaned and their dogs sat on and
Christopher Moltisanti over there.
Too soon.
It's been years.
I know what's making up.
He's clean now, I think, or dead. I don't know.
Michael Imperioli has a band, and they're pretty good.
Oh,
and I totally forgot they were playing Milwaukee. I could have gone and seen them, and I totally forgot about it.
It's pretty funny. He's like a classically trained actor, and then he had that podcast they did with Steve Shrippa, who is not, but is distantly related to like one of my childhood best friends, I think. But whose also last name is Shrippa. But they like, so he was like, yeah, so I was at a bar and I was fucking around, and Michael Imperioli is like, this is called the the technique that I learned at my acting school, and like
this mise-en-scene is more like the okay.
He's like, mise-en-scene, like I got a fucking right now. Yo,
there gotta be a mise-en-scene in the urinal if you know what I'm talking about. Talking about
we talk about aesthetics. The aesthetics in the bathroom over there. They were fucking.
Are we talking about the aesthetics of these final thoughts?
Yeah, but you really want to get off this show? Damn.
I got food coming here. So
all right. So that's if I didn't know that. You should have put it in the chat. Hurry up, bitch! I got
that.
What you're up to? Yeah.
You should have told me I'm making it foodlitical.
Anything else for the plugs, Andy? Was that it?
Yeah,
I think that's pretty much all the plugs.
That's enough.
I got an interview that I'm actually doing myself on Ben Burgess's channel for patrons. So if you're a patron over there, check it out. I'll be interviewing a local art gallery runner about a couple of artists and a show that they just had that you sadly missed. But it'll be interesting because you could still check out the now I'm going to blank on the artist's name. But you can still check out the works there at the gallery, and also while you're there, see Leonard Nimoy and Dr. Seuss's work in person too. So super cool place. But we will be getting into politics of a couple of artists working in the 20th century. So stay tuned for that. I don't know when that's happening or when that's coming out, but that will be happening for patrons over at Give Them an Argument.
All right, Christina's got food coming. Christina, let's hear some.
So I absolutely loved this film. It's probably the first political, satirical, drama-ish that I've ever seen. I'm kind of glad that my government teacher told me to watch this so that I would be smart, understand how things work in the Democratic Party, how things are, how they run their candidates and shit like that. So I
was Jill Stein Jill Stein
I was gonna say it's a good teacher. I mean that's
no, it is.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean she was a Bernie person. So I definitely this is probably my favorite political film for sure. I give it how many I voted stickers? 11 out of 10.
By the way, do you guys remember that I told you that weird shaped head thing was going to be won the competition to be our I voted sticker? It won the competition, and I'll wear it. I'll wear it on our election night stream after I vote because it's like a head. It's like a demon head on like a thing, and that's our I voted sticker. And our politicians locally have leaned into it.
I feel like we talked about 28 Days Later, East Hastings, that Godspeed You Black Emperor song. One of my favorite moments is everyone's like, please rise for our new national anthem. That played during anyway, whatever. Me, right?
Yep.
Truly stunning how so many of these themes in this film are totally accurate and haven't changed much in 50 years. I think this is a great film. It's about how the process of getting elected is basically a machine to grind down any and all ideology and altruism and a potential candidate in the name of getting elected and the advancement of power. It's chilling. Bill McKay isn't supposed to win, but his charisma, which as we've... Oh, that's right. I forgot about this. But his charisma, integrity, can't be taught. Charisma can't be taught, is what gets him there and makes him a serious contender, even as the actual altruism and ideals sort of get worn and winnowed away because everyone loves a good looking candidate. So although it's more or less about John Tunney, as we mentioned, the Senate candidate in California from 1970, there are big time generational themes too. In this case, it's the baby boomers taking control of the zeitgeist and a power seizure they basically would never ever give up, but that's not the focus on here because as mentioned, there's stuff pulled from the McCarthy campaign and many others, and it was very much made of its time, but it's weirdly timeless as our culture becomes more and more obsessed with facile image traits, image over issue, frames over facts, etc. And I think this is a great film, and I think it's a perfect starter for Election Night Extravaganza. I'm actually very excited to talk about the rest of these films as well, and excited and terrified to see what next week holds.
I will be here for it.
Our election night extravaganza.
Yeah, it's gonna say for the results and for whatever we're gonna be doing.
We've been talking about doing Bob Roberts for like over a year now.
It's honestly, it's like top 50 film for me, and I haven't. But I say that I have not seen it in years. This is gonna be my first watch in a long time.
I think we brought it up when we talked about our
tape heads.
No, it wasn't when we talked about tape beds. It was when we talked on This Is Revolution. We talked about what the fuck? Why can't I think of the other Tim Roberts movie?
The Player?
The Player.
Yeah, The Player. Yeah. I said Tim Roberts also. I didn't mean it. Tim
Guys,
Roberts.
can I pop off my food here?
I think we're done, right?
Yeah.
I just have to give my final thoughts.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Well, I
Yeah.
gotta
Go,
get my food
Kristina.
All right.
available.
Get your food. I didn't know that you had food. Go get your food.
Thanks. Bye,
Get your
guys.
food.
See
Go
you
eat.
in 2 weeks
Oh,
whenever I come back.
2 weeks. There she goes, everybody.
But yeah,
She's really selling that stream. I'm going to be streaming. Doing what? All right. Sounds compelling.
Well, isn't that 90% of what Twitch is? Really?
Oh, well, hey.
Nobody plans out what they're going to do on Twitch. They're just there and they're like, let's watch some videos together.
Well,
I think
she's
it's
got a
great-
few things like like planned out, like oh, we're gonna cover this topic, and maybe she doesn't, because sometimes she just throws that right out the door because something else happens. But
She should hire me as her press agent. I know how to sell that show.
Exactly.
Move to the center.
Like I did.
Andy, let's hear these
Political
final
center, not so much, but the panel center, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Conan, for bringing this movie into my life. I kind of completely missed this movie. I don't know how. And I was kind of mad after I finished watching it because it's like everything, like all the wrong lessons were learned from this movie, and like you could see like this is a great satire, but yet everybody took it as like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do, and that's where we
yeah.
and that's where like democratic politics has been since at least the 90s that I'm aware of. Probably
really
longer than that.
You had to actually write an op-ed to say, hey, this was a satire to Dan Quayle.
Amazing.
But yeah, and I mean, it just like you can plug in so many, like Bill Clinton, because he ran a very left campaign, and then governed from the center, and a few other people did that.
Triangulation.
Did that as well, and so
don't
like,
worry, we got some Clinton era movies coming up, man. Like Wag the Dog, especially.
You can fill in whoever you want to as like who took the wrong lessons from this film, and you're
Head
probably
of state
true.
about the first black president, Bill Clinton.
I have a lot of thoughts about Head of State, and I actually think it's got a good political message. But let's let Andy finish.
Yeah, and so so I'm glad I finally got to actually watch this movie, and I kind of wish I did it sooner to appreciate it.
All right. Well, I just, I'm going to end this on a question. Conan, what do we do now?